module 5, saving and reusing flows, this is actually quite a quick module to go through, and it's looking at the 4 key steps that we would do to demonstrate reusing your workflows, reusing your flows in different circumstances. So you're talking about the ability to save a flow as a new copy, and this is a great way of making a slight variation of a flow, so you can sort of copy the entire thing and then tweak it to do variants, sort of different sort of side effects. You can then give a flow to someone else. You can export the zip package and then give it to them. They can import it, preferably within the same tenancy, although you can do it outside of tenancy, but there's more harder work to do. Creating a logic apps template, which will show you, and then you've got creating a flow template. So we'll have a look at what these are about. Okay, so I've got this process request, and it's got all the lovely bells and whistles. It's working on a status field and checking the life cycle of the content against the status. And my colleague looks at that and goes, "This is great, John. Could I have a copy of that so that I can then use that in my stationery or my bookings system or my, I don't know, whatever they're doing?" So I think, yeah, okay, I can do that. So there's a quick, lazy way, as long as I'm confident there's no sensitive data in there, with the exception of email addresses and so on, but you get warned about this. So when I go into the actual flow here, click on the commands and I can send a copy. Now there will either be a red or a yellow or a green box at the top. If it's yellow, it's warning you something is wrong, but it will still allow you to send a copy. If it's green, it's fine. If it's red, you can't send a copy. And it's usually things like you've got some parameters missing. The most common one is when it hasn't been run before. So there's no established run that says this last run was successful. If you don't know it works, what are you sending? So watch out for that. Really, if it's yellow or green, then you're fine. If it's red, you can't actually do anything underneath it. You can't do a title, which I'm going to call this one Process Request Manager. I'll add a description. Description's got to be a certain number of characters. So I'm going to put in there, manages the status of process and actions at different stages. Okay, if I don't put in a long enough sentence, it's a bit fiddly this one, but as you say, the description is too short. It should be more than 25 characters. So it's just a bit of a minor thing. You could put in 25 Zs if you if you like, and then send it to anyone you like. So I'm going to put that to, and you're looking for user accounts that are within your tenancy. So let's send this to delegate H00. There we go. So all checks out, all looks good. I can now send a copy. But as it said there, there were some email addresses, and it's very, very important, because once you submitted it, as it says down the bottom, you can't recall it. So if you go, oh, I better recall that back and change it and then send him another copy, like you can with emails, you can't with this. Once it's gone, it's gone. Now that raises concerns. I think, hang on a minute, there could be some data in there that the users, I don't want them to see it. So what you can do is you can make a copy of the flow. So I can actually make a copy, save as. So this is so I can create a safe copy of this flow. It will remove all of the co-owners. I'm the primary owner, so I'm still needed because it's using my user account at the moment to get to the data connectors. And once it's finished, you'll find this, because it's removed all the other users, it goes into the my flows and it's deactivated. So it's turned off, if you like. And I can turn it on. If I go into that there, you can see on the dashboard, I can turn it on. The reason I turned it off, because there might be a trigger, like, you know, dropping a file in somewhere, and if you've just made a copy as a backup, the last thing you want is the backup running as well as the live one. So it's a good thing it turns it off. Okay, I'm now going to go into that and have a look. I'm not going to tweak anything about it. You can't remove personal data and leave it empty, because the flow checker will just have a fit. So I have to leave the content in there. But now that I've made a copy, what I'm able to do is pass that safely to other people and then remove my connector information or whatever information I don't want to share. So to do that, I then take that one and I can go to the ellipsis there and I can export and give it to the users as a package zip. Give it as a zip if they don't know code and they just want to pull it in and tweak it visually. You can give it through a Logic Apps template, and this basically gives it as a whole block of code, and they can go into the code and tweak the code before importing and working with it, so they can do some great modification with it. I'm just going to do a package, nice and simple. And when this is done, you can add and remove information as you see fit. So I'm going to call this process manager, and it is just a model that manages let's call it status process manager. So it manages status. You got the environment in there. If this is going to another person in the same tenancy, having that information, it's up to you as your governance decides whether that information is shareable or not. I don't want that in there, so I'm going to put in from John Day, but you can leave that as empty as you like. Description manages the values of a status field and actions accordingly. Okay, now I need to review the package content, and I do this before it goes out, and it's also done at the other end. So it's kind of deconnecting, if you like, and then reconnecting. So I've got the process request manager. This is basically looking at the diagram that I've got in there. So what I can do with this diagram is I can go into the configure option, and what I can say is instead of updating, in other words, I want this to overwrite as a new version of a flow. So maybe I've given it to someone and they've fixed a bug, given it back to me, and I can update my current flow with the new one. I want to give this to someone else as a brand new flow. It's a whole new package that they can import. So now, because it knows that, it's already sort of looked at all the components inside the diagram and cleaned them up. The other thing is the resources. Using my user account and the data connectors, therefore, for the SharePoint connection, and of course the approvals connection I've got sitting in one of the actions there. So I can go into the configure. Depending on the situation, there will be either one or up to 3 different options depending on what it's doing. And what I'm saying is, when I go to open it up, what I'm hoping is, and I'm going to put this in a completely different tenancy to show this, but what it's going to hopefully do is going to take my name, and it's going to change it, probably about here actually I think it is, and it's going to change it with the name of the person who's logged into their tenancy or into the account using their details. So I'm hoping that that's going to rip it all out. I can also add comments to specify to the user, oh, bear in mind you need to do this, or this uses the E3 license, so I'm going to put in there, this is based on our E3 license. Great stuff. And then I export it. Now that will automatically download a copy to you, but when the page refreshes, it will have a download button. Don't get swayed by that. It is already downloading. So that's my status process manager file already ready. I'm just going to open and show that in my download section. Got lots of content in here. It's all demo content, but there it is. There's the status process manager. It's got the date, the time, stamp there as well. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to now log in under another tenancy and show you how this works. So I'm going to go to the extremes here. Okay, so I'm logged into my own personal tenancy that I use for my YouTube videos called John Day QA. And I've got some stuff in there, but the idea is now I'm going to go to the import button at the top. And now on the right hand side of the screen, I'm going to upload and select that file. That could be sent to me via email, put on a shared area, doesn't really matter. Let's go and grab where I've made my copy. There's the status process manager. And as you can see, it's pulled it in. It's displayed the information that I put in when I saved it. It's given me the green tick that the actual diagram and the layout of the flow seems to be okay. If I go to the configure, You can see that it's defaulted to as a create as new, and at this point when I put it in, I can give it my own name. So I can say this is going to be called process bookings. Let's say this is going to be for my bookings form that I'm going to be building. Save that. There we go. So you're going to create a new one, and it's going to call it process bookings. And as you can see underneath it, it's got my details, which again, there's no way they can use this. So what I have to do is go on the right hand side and configure these resources to use my account to get to the data connectors, SharePoint and approvals. So I click the configure. I can either create a new one from scratch, but as you can see, it's already picked up my user account, select it, and it seems to be happy. So I'm going to click save. I then repeat that for all the resource types that I need to finalize. So you can see the approvals uses its own connector, its own API, so I'm happy with that. Save that. And now that I've done everything it needs to do, the import button is blue, ready for me to go. I click it and it pulls the data in. Okay, it seems like it's very happy with the outcome. So all I've got to do is then go to my flows. Nope, that was scary. It took a while for it to appear, but there it is, and it's ready for me to go in and tweak. Let's click on the flow and look at the dashboard. There's my own user account, different photograph because it's a different John Day in a different tenancy. And I'm now going to edit, and there it is in its entirety. If I expand, as I say, the normal thing about this is that unfortunately I can't really do much about that, but because the information it's pointing to is another tenancy, or I don't have rights, maybe I could be in the same tenancy but I don't have rights to that content, the rest of it, like the list name, just comes up with a GUID, which means nothing to anybody. So all I've got to do is clean that content out and then point it to the correct site. So I'm going to go into my studio. I think I've got a list in there. Yeah, I've got my lyrics list. So I can now connect this into there. I can go and get the items. So this is no different to building from a template like we show on the essentials. Like create a new flow from a template. All I'm doing is I'm just populating the actions, but the structure's pre-built. So all I've got to do is just customize this to suit my needs, and it's ready to go. Now, what if I've created such an excellent flow that it's so good, I'm thinking, oh, everybody could benefit from this. Let's save it as a template, and I can open it up to the public so different organizations can share my template. I can take my flow and I can submit it to a gallery which is moderated by Microsoft, and then I can give it to them, and they can then, if they're happy and it's a safe environment to offer, that would then become a template that will sit in the list of templates. What you need to do is click on the actual flow, so it takes you into that, and then at the top there's a submit as template. Same sort of principle. You go in there, fill in the details, so you put in the title's name, the description, what the biggest benefit are. So what does it do? It sort of improves information life cycle based on a status. Number of users, number of runs, how often will this run on average? Well, I can't answer that, but I would say that based on the process of this has been used really for many times. Okay, so underneath that then you categorize it so that when people go looking for this and they click on that new template, it will fall inside there. So I'm going to put this under, I'm not going to put it under approval, that's kind of dangerous. I'm going to put it under productivity, but I can do custom categories. So I could do this under something like life cycle. I could put this under whatever I like, and that can then be provided to users, and they can then go in use your template. Okay, so we've now looked at our saving and reusing flows. Very nice, handy tools to save us an awful lot of time, being able to reuse certain areas of code again and again. Some obviously, as you can see, need tweaking, but it still is a big time saver to use your same flows, export them and save them as appropriate.